So we're back. I'm here with Aaron Mate. And guess what's happening? Joe Biden is sending tanks to Ukraine.
And today I'm announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, the equivalent of 1 Ukrainian battalion. Secretary Austin has recommended this step because it will enhance the Ukraine's capacity to defend its territory and achieve its strategic objectives.
Okay, now, it's not true. None of that is true. Those tanks are not going to even help. They're easily blown up by the missiles that rebels can have. They're horrible. So, and I could show you the video, but they would demonetize of how easy it is to blow up one of those tanks, because there's videos
You're
all
not
over.
allowed to show a video of that?
They would, if it killed someone, I can't show it or something. So here's the United States has announced it will spend $400 million to send 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine for Russia to blow up, because that's all it is. And those tanks are worthless, and that's not going to do anything. This is just a transfer of money to the military-industrial complex. And here's the proof. Michael Tracy caught this 1 month ago. An anonymous senior defense official told the Washington Post it would be impossible for the United States to send even a single M1 Abrams tank to Ukraine as a symbolic gesture. But it turns out all things are possible in the world of mass armament provision. And here's the part he's talking about. Told of Renzikov's comments, the first senior defense official said even one M1 was out of the question. Used by U.S. forces in Iraq, the massive battle tanks were hard for us to sustain and maintain. It would be impossible for them. So all of a sudden, they're sending them. According to the Washington Post, U.S. officials say that M1 Abrams tanks newly approved for Ukraine are probably not for the near fight and are not likely to arrive for many months, if not years. What Aaron just explained is that they're going to make new tanks. They're not going to ship tanks that are already made. They're going to spend billions of dollars more in new spending to make 31 tanks, $400 million, and then send those tanks, which is probably going to take over a year to do. So this is not about defending Ukraine. This is not about anything else except transferring money from the U.S. Treasury to the national security state. And by the way,
perfect, Jimmy.
Go ahead.
Perfect, Jimmy, because in the process, by the U.S. committing to send its own tanks, even though it will take months, if not years, that unlocks Germany to send its own tanks now. So what the U.S. has done is it's pushed German tanks into the crossfire. It's advanced the goal of further poisoning German-Russia relations, and it helps prolong the war. And then the question becomes, what next? Within hours of Germany and the U.S. announcing that they would send their tanks, Ukraine said, great, can we get F-16 fighter jets next? And Lockheed Martin responded by saying, great idea. We're already in production on building more to help speed up the transfer of that process. So Lockheed Martin is game. And this is a part of an escalation ladder where, as you pointed out, the U.S. previously said it was impossible to send even one M1 tank. A month later, it's very possible. They're sending 31. And what's next? Are we going to send fighter jets next?
It's all a scam, too. That's the thing you have to understand. The Ukraine war is a scam, and it's about us breaking off Russia from the European economy. It's about keeping Germany away from Russia's cheap fossil fuel. And so that we can then, the United States fossil fuel companies can sell liquefied natural gas to Europe and get some of that market. This is all what's happening, right? But what's actually happening is the exact opposite. We're not putting a hurt on Russia. What we're doing is creating another financial center, meaning it's going to be BRICS. It's going to be all the countries that don't want anything to do with the United States hegemony and imperialism, like China, like Russia and Brazil, India. And when those countries come together in an economic agreement, it's going to screw over our petrodollar, which is going to take away the United States from being the reserve currency of the world, which will crash our economy. They're doing that right now because our country isn't run by politicians. Our country is run by Wall Street, fossil fuel companies, and the military-industrial complex. So they don't care what happens to this country. They don't care what happens to the dollar as long as they keep getting billions of dollars from the U.S. Treasury given to them. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a fucking clown corporatocracy. That's exactly what we live in. And this is proof of it. And the American people are not waking up to it. Although I will say this, Aaron, when I go on stage, when I go in Burbank at Flappers last Saturday, and room full of people who don't know me, and I say, hey, you know, we're giving $100 billion to Ukraine. I would like if they gave $100 billion to America. And the crowd cheers. It sounds like they're catching on. What would you like to say about this?
I agree with you. We're nearly a year into Russia's invasion. Politicians in Washington, with the exception of like a fringe of the Republican Party, are all in lockstep behind this. And the country, obviously, recently there was, and you covered this, about how a record number of Americans are reporting that they have to delay healthcare because they can't afford it.
4 out of 10.
Right? And so 4 out of 10. So people are seeing this, and then they're seeing their elected members of Congress, including progressives who claim to care about Medicare for all and working people, all voting in unison for a disastrous neocon proxy war that is bleeding Ukraine, it's bleeding Russia, and it's fueling a global food crisis, and it's raising every single day the threat of a disastrous nuclear confrontation. And so, of course, people are going to be fed up. And there's more and more actions now. There's a protest coming up in Washington, D.C. on February 19th. Against the war, where a lot of people who we know who've been on the Jimmy Dore show are going to be there.
I'll be there.
And you'll be there. So, people are waking up. And remember, before the Iraq war, hundreds of thousands of people were taken to the streets. So the capacity in this country is there. There's just such an elaborate propaganda effort in our media to fool people and to deprive them of the basic facts. But, people can recognize now that these same institutions can't be trusted, and they're waking up.
Well, Aaron, I personally just want to make sure Ukraine has enough tanks before I get my colonoscopy.
Hey, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, Tempe, Arizona, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville, Northampton, Massachusetts, and a lot more places. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets and become a premium member while you're there. You get access to all of our stuff. See you then.